Welcome to my channel. The world's most advanced Bugatti prototype sat motionless inside Titan Automotive Research Center for 8 straight days. A team of international specialists had worked around the clock. They replaced sensors, reprogrammed computers, installed brand new components. The repair bill had already crossed $500,000. Yet, the engine refused to start. The CEO, Victoria Lawson, slammed her hand on the conference table. 8 days. And nobody can make this car run? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. Just then, the head of security walked in. "Ma'am. There's someone outside asking to see the car." Victoria frowned. "Who?" "A local mechanic." The executives laughed. One engineer smirked. "We've brought experts from Germany, Italy, and Japan. And now we're supposed to trust a neighborhood mechanic?" Security hesitated. "He says he doesn't need 8 days. He only needs 5 minutes." The room burst into laughter. Victoria smiled sarcastically. "Fine. Let's have today's entertainment." A few moments later, the workshop doors opened. Inside walked Ethan Brooks, a humble single dad wearing worn work boots and grease-stained overalls, holding his small toolbox. Beside him stood his 12-year-old daughter, Emma. She whispered, "Dad, these people don't believe in you." Ethan smiled. "They don't have to. I only need the engine to believe me." Victoria crossed her arms. "You know this car is worth over $10 million. Ethan nodded. "I do. And you're telling me you can fix what 8 specialists couldn't?" Ethan calmly replied. "I'm not here to prove they're wrong. I'm here to find what everyone else overlooked." The room became quiet. He walked slowly around the Bugatti. He didn't touch a single tool. He simply listened. He placed one hand gently on the engine cover, closed his eyes, then smiled. After less than 1 minute, he looked at Victoria. "I know why it won't start." The specialists exchanged amused looks. One engineer laughed. "Impossible. We've checked everything." Ethan picked up a small flashlight, shined it deep inside the engine bay, then quietly said, "You've all been repairing the wrong problem." The smiles disappeared. The workshop became completely silent. The specialists folded their arms. One engineer smirked. "So, what did we miss?" Ethan pointed his flashlight toward the rear of the engine. "Nothing mechanical. It's electrical." The chief engineer shook his head. "We replaced the entire electrical system." Ethan smiled. "Exactly. That's the problem." Everyone looked confused. Ethan carefully removed one small inspection panel. Hidden behind it was a tiny handmade connector. It looked decades old. Victoria frowned. "What is that?" Ethan replied, "A factory test bypass. It was never meant to be removed." The engineers exchanged nervous looks. One of them whispered, "We replaced that with a modern connector." Ethan nodded. "And that's why the Bugatti refuses to wake up." He reached into his old toolbox. Instead of an expensive diagnostic computer, he pulled out a small brass jumper wire. The executives laughed. "You're fixing a $10 million Bugatti with that?" Ethan calmly answered, "No. I'm simply giving it permission to remember how it was built." Emma smiled proudly. "My dad always says, machines have stories. You just have to listen." Ethan connected the old jumper wire. He tightened one tiny bolt. Looked at Victoria. "Please press the ignition." Victoria hesitated. "If this damages the engine." Ethan nodded. "It won't. She slowly pressed the start button. Nothing happened. Several engineers smiled. I told you. But Ethan raised one finger. One more time. Victoria pressed the button again. Suddenly. Click. The dashboard lights flashed. Fuel pumps came alive. The entire workshop froze. A deep mechanical growl echoed through the building. Then. Roar. The Bugatti's massive engine exploded to life. The sound shook the glass walls. Employees dropped their tools. Security guards rushed inside. Even the engineers stood speechless. Victoria stared at the running engine. Her voice barely came out. 8 days. And you fixed it in less than 5 minutes. Ethan quietly closed his toolbox.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Enjoy the video.
I didn't fix the engine. I corrected one mistake. Just then. A senior Bugatti executive entered the workshop after hearing the engine. He looked at Ethan. Then at the running prototype. His eyes widened. Who taught you to recognize that connector? Ethan's expression suddenly changed. He answered softly. My father. The executive took a step back. No. That's impossible. I knew your father. The workshop fell silent. The senior Bugatti executive slowly walked toward Ethan. His eyes never left him. You said. Your father taught you. Ethan nodded. My father was Daniel Brooks. The executive's face turned pale. I can't believe it. I worked with Daniel in France over 25 years ago. He was one of the brightest engine specialists Bugatti ever had. The room erupted into whispers. Victoria looked at Ethan in disbelief. You never told anyone? Ethan smiled softly. My father never cared about titles. He left the company after my mother became ill. He opened a small garage instead. He always told me. The best mechanic isn't the one with the most expensive tools, it's the one who listens. Emma smiled proudly. Grandpa taught Dad everything. The Bugatti executive walked around the prototype. Then he stopped beside the engine. He pointed toward a tiny hand-engraved symbol hidden beneath the intake manifold. This mark. Only 3 engineers in Bugatti history were allowed to use it. He looked at Ethan. Your father was one of them. The engineers stared in complete shock. Just then. A young technician ran into the workshop carrying a tablet. Sir. You need to see this. He connected the tablet to the giant display. A hidden engineering file appeared. Project Phantom. Status. Failed. Lead engineer. Daniel Brooks. Victoria looked confused. I've never seen this project before. The Bugatti executive lowered his head. It was classified. It was the fastest prototype Bugatti had ever attempted to build. But after Daniel left, the project was abandoned forever. Ethan quietly opened the old toolbox his father had left him. Hidden beneath the tools was a faded notebook. Inside were hand-drawn engine diagrams. On the final page was a message written in Daniel's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means you solved the first problem. The second one is far more important. Tucked inside the notebook was an old storage key with a small metal tag. It read, Warehouse 17. The Bugatti executive stared at the key. His voice trembled. No. Warehouse 17 was destroyed years ago. Then he looked at Ethan. If that key still works, it may lead to the only missing Project Phantom prototype in the world. Everyone in the workshop stood frozen. The room remained silent. Everyone stared at the small brass key in Ethan's hand. The Bugatti executive took a deep breath. I never thought I'd see that key again. Victoria asked quietly. "What's inside Warehouse 17?" He replied. If Daniel Brooks kept his promise. The missing Project Phantom prototype. The next morning, Ethan, Emma, Victoria, and the Bugatti executive traveled to an abandoned industrial district. Rust covered the old buildings. Broken windows lined the walls. At the end of the road stood a faded steel door. Above it, a weathered sign read, Warehouse 17. Ethan inserted the old key. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, click. The heavy lock opened. Inside, dust filled the air. Large canvas sheets covered forgotten machines. Wooden crates lined the walls. Everything had been untouched for decades. Emma noticed something unusual. "Dad! Look at the floor. Fresh tire marks. Someone had been there recently." The group followed the tracks. At the far end of the warehouse stood a massive black cover. Ethan slowly pulled it away. Everyone gasped. Beneath it sat a sleek silver Bugatti prototype unlike anything they had ever seen. Its body looked almost futuristic. A metal plaque on the front read, Project Phantom, Prototype 001. Victoria whispered. "It really exists." The Bugatti executive wiped tears from his eyes. "We thought this car had been destroyed." Ethan opened the driver's door. Inside was another leather notebook. The first page carried his father's handwriting. "If this prototype is ever found, it belongs to the future, not to me." The next page contained detailed instructions for finishing the engine. Victoria looked at Ethan. "Your father solved the final design. But he never got the chance to prove it." Ethan nodded quietly. "Maybe now he will." Just then, security alarms suddenly echoed through the warehouse. Red lights began flashing. Outside, several black SUVs pulled into the parking lot. Men in expensive suits stepped out. Their leader smiled coldly. "We've been looking for Project Phantom for years." He pointed at the prototype. "That car belongs to us now." The warehouse doors slammed shut behind Ethan and his team. The warehouse doors slammed shut. The men in black suits slowly walked toward the Bugatti prototype. Their leader smiled. "My name is Victor Kane. We've spent 15 years searching for Project Phantom. And today, we're taking it." Ethan calmly stepped in front of the car. "I'm afraid that's not happening." Victor laughed. "You think one mechanic can stop us?" Before anyone could move, police sirens echoed outside. Victor smiled. "You called the police?" Victoria shook her head. "I didn't." The Bugatti executive looked toward Emma. She quietly held up her phone. "I did. When I saw the SUVs arrive." Within seconds, armed officers surrounded the warehouse. Victor and his men were ordered to surrender. As police searched the vehicles, they discovered stolen prototype parts, forged ownership papers, and confidential engineering files from several luxury car companies. The lead detective turned to Victor. "You're under arrest for industrial espionage, theft, and possession of stolen property." Victor lowered his head. As officers led him away, he looked back at Ethan. "If you hadn't found this car, we would have sold it for billions." Ethan replied. "Some things are too important to belong to thieves." With the danger over, the Bugatti Heritage team carefully inspected Project Phantom. After hours of examination, the chief engineer smiled. "It's complete." Victoria looked surprised. "What do you mean?" He pointed to Daniel Brooks' notebook. "He secretly finished every missing calculation. The only thing left was someone brave enough to turn the key." Everyone looked at Ethan. Ethan sat in the driver's seat. He took a deep breath. Emma smiled. "Grandpa would be proud." Ethan turned the ignition. For a moment. Silence. Then. Roar. The legendary Project Phantom came to life for the first time in over 25 years. The sound echoed through the warehouse. Even veteran Bugatti engineers applauded. Some wiped away tears. The Bugatti executive walked over carrying a blue presentation box. Inside was a platinum badge engraved with Ethan's name. It read, Honorary Chief Heritage Engineer. He smiled. This honor has only been awarded once before. To your father. Victoria shook Ethan's hand. I fired experts to solve this problem. But the person who saved Bugatti's greatest project was a humble single dad. Just then, the executive received a phone call. After listening for a few seconds, he smiled. Ethan. The Bugatti board has made a unanimous decision. They don't want to buy your father's invention. They want you to lead the next generation of Bugatti engineering. The boardroom at Bugatti headquarters was completely silent. The chairman stood and smiled at Ethan. Mr. Brooks. We would like to offer you the position of Director of Heritage Engineering. Every executive applauded. Victoria looked at Ethan. You've earned it. Ethan looked down at his father's old notebook. Then gently closed it. I'm honored. But I have one condition. The chairman nodded. Name it. Ethan smiled. I don't want a private laboratory. I don't want a luxury office. I want a training center. For young mechanics who have talent but can't afford expensive schools. The chairman smiled. Done. Your father's dream deserves to continue. 6 months later. The Daniel Brooks Heritage Engineering Academy officially opened. Young mechanics from around the world filled the workshops. Expensive tools stood beside old hand tools. On the main wall hung a simple wooden sign. Skill is earned with your hands, not purchased with money. Every student stopped to read it. At the academy entrance stood the restored Project Phantom. Beside it was the same small brass jumper wire Ethan had used to start the dead Bugatti in 5 minutes. Visitors often asked, why display something so simple? Ethan always smiled. Because this tiny piece of metal reminds us that the smallest detail can solve the biggest problem. One afternoon, Emma walked through the workshop watching students rebuild classic engines. She smiled. Dad. Do you ever think about that day when everyone laughed at you? Ethan laughed softly. I do. And I'm grateful for it. Emma looked surprised. Why? Because if they hadn't doubted me, I would never have had the chance to prove what Grandpa taught me. Later that year, Bugatti unveiled its newest hypercar. Before the presentation, the chairman invited Ethan onto the stage. He addressed the audience. 8 specialists spent 8 days and over $500,000 trying to revive one prototype. A humble single father succeeded in 5 minutes. Not because he had better equipment, but because he understood something money can't buy. He turned toward Ethan. Experience. The audience rose for a standing ovation. As the ceremony ended, Ethan walked outside with Emma. The same old pickup truck he had driven to Bugatti headquarters was still parked by the entrance. Emma smiled. Dad. You could drive any Bugatti in the world now. Ethan looked at the pickup and smiled. This truck carried your grandfather's toolbox. It carried our dreams. And it reminds me where we started. As they drove away, the world's greatest engineers watched with respect. The CEO who had once doubted a humble mechanic never forgot the lesson that changed her company forever. The most valuable tool in any workshop isn't the most expensive one. It's the knowledge, patience, and heart of the person holding it. Like and subscribe.